So to start with, I am Chief John Thompson, and I have with me up here today two assistant chiefs, one over the Patrol Bureau that provided the initial response to the missing persons report, and we also have the assistant chief over the investigative bureau who is responsible to oversee the detectives who investigate missing persons cases. And I'll let them introduce themselves.
I'm Assistant Chief M.J. Harris, currently over the Patrol Bureau.
I'm Assistant Chief Rick Austin, currently over the Investigative Bureau.
So what I'll start with is an update from the medical examiner's office related to the autopsy results. Based on preliminary findings, the North Carolina Office of the Chief Medical Examiner has ruled Mr. Little's manner of death as accidental due to drowning. Toxicology results are pending, and there is no set time for when those results may become available. This information has been shared with Mr. Little's family. And what I'd like to do is just take a moment to kind of generally speak to two concerns that I know have come up through the community, not only through Mr. Little's family and friends, but other community members as well. And one is the decision not to search the pond where ultimately Mr. Little was located. Second being what actions were taken over the course of the time of when Mr. Little was reported missing until ultimately he was found in the pond. So after the report was filed, the case was assigned to a detective for follow-up. During that investigation, I believe it was the January 3rd, information by family and friends who were out at the apartment complex where Mr. Little was last seen indicated that there were some tracks near a retention pond and some vehicle tracks near a retention pond in the apartment complex. The detective went to the scene, met with individuals, family and friends that were there, and he had a number of pieces of evidence that really led him not to believe that Mr. Little was in the pond. One of those being that when contact was made with the mother of Mr. Little's child, and I'm not sharing her information publicly at this time, but when he was on the phone with her, presumably after he left the apartment complex, he had made the statement that he believed he was driving in Jamestown on his way to meet with the mother of his child and pick up his child. So that was one piece of information the detective had. Second, the tracks in the grass near the pond went for approximately 8 to 10 feet. They didn't continue, they didn't go into the pond itself, but they were stopped. And so that led the detective to take some additional actions. Maintenance of the apartment complex was contacted, and they relayed to the detective that the pond was only 3 to 4 feet deep at its depth. So you have the statement from Mr. Little in the Jamestown area. You have the tracks that led up to the pond or in the grass, but did not continue completely into the pond. They stopped probably anywhere from 15 to 20 feet before ever making it into the pond. You have information from maintenance advising the pond was 3 to 4 feet deep, and if there was a vehicle in there, would have been seen. And there was also video surveillance from the apartment complex that showed at the time what we believe to be Mr. Little's vehicle leaving the apartment complex about an hour and a half after he was last seen from his friends there at the apartment. All of that information is what led detectives to believe that he was not located in the pond at that time, and that he had made it out of the apartment complex and possibly on his way to meet with the mother of his child. So the information out there, we know all of that information has not been shared with the community. Some of it's been in bits and pieces. We just wanted to make sure everybody understood that this was not a case where there was clear evidence that it was obvious that this vehicle had driven into the pond, and we just failed to act or did not take that into consideration. It was the opposite, where we did take it into consideration. The steps that the officer took, he also deployed an aerial drone over the pond to see if he could see anything in the water or along the banks of the pond that would indicate the vehicle had went in, and nothing of the evidence pointed to that. So at that point, the investigation continues, and over the next 10 days until Mr. Little was located, there are a number of steps the detective took for investigative follow-up. There were DNA samples collected to enter into our missing database, missing persons database. Cameras were being followed up on. Interviews were done with the last 4 individuals who saw Mr. Little before leaving the apartment complex. We were getting leads and information from the community. We had one lead that somebody had seen him in Lexington after he had been reported missing. We had information from another individual that Mr. Little's phone had called their phone twice, leading us to believe that, again, he may be somewhere still alive at that point. All that information, working with highway patrol, hospitals, following up with leads from family members, are what the detectives worked on in the days leading up to the recovery of Mr. Little's body from the retention pond. I know that there may be other questions, clarifications, concerns, but I want to start by saying that I don't know what it is like to be in Mr. Little's mother's shoes. I am a parent. I have 2 children, but I have not experienced the loss that she is going through or that she experienced. And I hope I never have to experience that. I wish nobody would ever have to experience that. And we do take that into consideration when we are investigating these cases and the information that is out there and being relayed. And I want folks to know that, it breaks our heart anytime we lose somebody in our community when it doesn't have to happen. And a tragic accident that Mr. Little experienced and the pain his mom is going through, and we're very sorry for that.